Major, clearly the battle between Trump and Cruz is escalating. The billionaire is adding campaign events, as you mentioned, and that's something that he didn't do in Iowa. He was basically one event a day almost in Iowa. He's going pretty public with his criticism of Cruz. Privately, is the Trump campaign really starting to feel the pressure?
Well, the Trump campaign is under pressure here, and the interesting thing about this stage of a campaign is you know exactly what a campaign is thinking privately by what it does publicly. There isn't anything to hide anymore. When a campaign suddenly, on an ad hoc basis, somewhat haphazardly adds 2 events to the schedule within 24 hours of the schedule being formalized, you know it's trying to reach more voters because it's under greater pressure to do what? Meet more voters. Look, you don't add things to a schedule at the last second unless you're under pressure. Why? Because putting things on the schedule well in advance allows you to do what? Advance the event. Have the people who support you there to make it look good, to have lots of people there. So it's not kind of an improvisational thing. So the Trump campaign, you don't even need me to tell you. When you see the schedule and you see things being added to it, you know it's under pressure, and it feels the need to see more New Hampshire voters campaign here more along the lines of the old-fashioned way, face-to-face retail politics, because the pressure is on, and the Trump campaign knows if it doesn't come in first here, not only will it have fallen well below expectations, handed back a huge lead in the polls, but suffered 2 straight losses, and the winning motif of the Trump campaign will be under severe stress.
Major, the Republican field is down to 9, a tad smaller now after 2 candidates dropped out yesterday. Who stands to gain the most after Rand Paul and Rick Santorum have dropped out?
Well, look, we're not talking about a lot of votes behind Rick Santorum, but we are talking about one important Republican funder, Foster Friess, who was the principal financial backer of Rick Santorum, either as an organizer of other people to donate or acting by himself. And there have been substantial conversations between Marco Rubio's campaign and Foster Friess. They may or may not materialize into financial support for Rubio. But when you saw Santorum endorse Rubio last night, that was an indication that's an alliance that might come together. On the Rand Paul side, there's a liberty vote, a constitutional vote, meaning people wanting to find a candidate not named Rand Paul because he's out of the race, who will protect liberty, protect the Constitution. There's some sense that Cruz could grab some of those votes, but it's worth pointing out in the last debate before the Iowa caucuses, Rand Paul essentially said Ted Cruz's campaign is built on a lie. He's not as conservative as he says he is. He doesn't protect the Constitution as much as he says he does. So that makes that alliance more difficult. I imagine the Rand Paul vote will be somewhat dispersed for a while and over time may consolidate once the Republican nominee becomes clearer, but I don't think that vote heads anywhere in one direction right away.
Major, let's talk a little bit about the importance of order in terms of how the primary will end up. We saw in Iowa that Marco Rubio's 3rd place finish was sort of seen as a win for him. So how important is order in New Hampshire?
So expectations mean a great deal. And, of course, finishing first means a great deal. And one of the things that Trump complains about now is he doesn't get much credit for finishing a relatively strong second to Ted Cruz in Iowa. So does Trump need to finish first to meet expectations? Absolutely. He's had a double-digit lead here for months. But if Ted Cruz comes in second, that will be a formidable finish for him. Why? Because New Hampshire isn't as conservative, has far more independents who participate in a Republican primary. So if he were to finish a strong second here, then he could say, look, I'm building a coalition that's not just full of social conservatives and evangelical conservatives as I did in Iowa. For the same reasons, if Marco Rubio or somebody else, maybe John Kasich or Jeb Bush or Chris Christie, were to finish second, they would be able to say, look, we underperformed in Iowa. Marco Rubio would say that, and we did solidly in New Hampshire. Now we're prepared to go on to South Carolina. So it's really an interesting relationship between Trump and Cruz, and then what happens to Kasich, Christie, and Bush. Their alignment next to each other and how much distance there are between them will really tell us a lot about how far their campaigns continue to go. I would say the stakes are incredibly high for Bush and Christie and Kasich. They need to break through, and I would say almost each and every one of those has to beat Rubio to have a credible chance of going into South Carolina with anything approximating momentum.
A lot to look forward to. Major Garrett in Keene, New Hampshire, thank you.
You got it.